that. Don't question his intelligence. Question his motivations. Question his ability to tell you the truth about why he's doing things. Thank you for watching. CNN Tonight with D. Lemon starts right now.
Did you watch the photo op today?
I did.
And what'd you think?
I thought that was a nice white hat he had on. I also thought that, look, I don't like him putting the men and women who are doing that job of keeping us safe in this position.
Right.
Putting all those bags of drugs in. They're all now forced to support a farce. The drugs don't come across the border on foot in any major way. The tunnels that I had to walk in that El Chapo documentary, those are real, but most come through the ports of entry in vehicles. But he doesn't talk about the X-ray equipment the way he talks about the wall, because he doesn't give a damn about the drugs. He's using them as motivation to get what he wants. It's irresponsible.
Did you hear about they're starting that wall on the northern border, the Canadian border? Did you hear about that one?
I heard a little bit about it.
Yeah. No. Of course not. Of course not. And that is.
And you have many more terrorists that came through there.
There you go. So why aren't we talking about that?
Because he didn't talk about it in the campaign.
Well, it's obvious why we're not talking about it.
Well, what are you asking
Because it doesn't. Well, because it doesn't. Listen, I've been thinking about this, and one of the folks here raised a very similar question as we were talking about covering the story. There are so many people who are officials who are on the southern border, right? Who are opposed to the wall, but yet because of the rhetoric, people in the middle of the country who aren't directly affected by it have a completely different idea and opinion about it, because number one, they're not there, but number two, they're hearing all the rhetoric from conservative media, from people who have their facts wrong, and from this administration about it, when they are hundreds of miles away from the border and they are not directly affected by it.
Listen, I don't have any problem with physical barriers. I believe the men and women who are working down there who say they need more of them to do their job effectively.
And I don't either. I
argue with the priority, the amount, and I argue with the lies that are used to motivate the false priority. Yeah. And saying that we're a wall away from being safe, we're a wall away from the drug problem being better, we're a wall away from anything. What I hope is, after all of this, I hope the people who support this wall because one death is too many, I hope they remember that rationale. So the next time that we have a use of force case where it seems like it was done the wrong way in that instance, that one is too many.
You're talking about with police officers, right?
And that when they hear about someone dying who shouldn't have died, and it's a situation where it was a function of a social disadvantage, that one is too many. Yeah. I hope they remember that as a rationale that they're using right now. Well, I doubt they will.
I always say the pendulum swings, right? And that karma is a you-know-what. So let's think about when there's a Democratic administration and someone wants to get something accomplished, and they say, well, you don't want to do it, then I'm going to say it is a national emergency, and I'm going to do it. Right. I think that this would
I will jump all over them like ugly on a gorilla.
No, but I'm just saying, if this administration, if this president does that, it really has dire consequences, and it sets a really bad precedent. Yeah.
And you know what his people will say? Well, what about DACA? It's not apples to apples. That was about executive orders. That was litigated. This is different. And if the president wants to do it, he can. And I think legally he may or may not get away with it. You know, he's lied so much about the realities of what he's calling a crisis.
He doesn't remember.
It's whether he remembers or not. It's that it's a little tricky for him to justify it in court. But even if legally it's found sufficient, and the bar is low under the 1976 Act, it's about how is he going to pay for it. And I got to tell you, Don, if he reaches into those pockets, if he dares to mess with Puerto Rico again, if he dares to mess with communities that have already been savaged by real emergencies.
Yep, Florida.
How dare he do that? I think that even he would have to feel that shame.
You know, this whole thing, I think I talked to you about this last night, this whole thing about how some people are framing it as this is, you know, both sides and a pox on both houses. I don't think that that's fair. Because I think that there was an agreement. Both sides had negotiated, right? They had come up, both Republicans and Democrats. They gave a little, and you know, Democrats gave a little, Republicans gave a little, and then they came to an agreement. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to sign on to. Right. And then, and the president said, okay, fine. And then at the last second, again, he heard from conservative media.
Yeah, he got scared.
And then he got scared. I think if I were in the position of the Democrat, or if there are conservatives who are listening right now, please, if you're listening, if someone moves the goalpost, continues to move the goalpost, why would you want to continue to negotiate with them? I don't understand that. There was an agreement already, right, to keep the government open, to make sure that federal workers got paid.
And he walked away from it.
And he walked away from it.
And then McConnell walked away from his constitutional duties and says, my job is to be a patsy. So, you know, if McConnell's able to get his boldness back and do his job, and they put things to a vote, well, then you're seeing how the process works on something like this. I have a simple rule. Whoever shuts down the government sucks. There is never a good reason to do it, because you wind up putting your inadequacy on the backs of people who don't deserve it.
Agreed. But just quickly, again, if we were negotiating, Chris, let's say we're trying to do a deal with something, and I said, okay, this is it. This is what I want, Chris. If you give it to me, then we can sign this deal. We can do it.
Right.
And then I turned around and said, you know what? Nah, I want this. And then I continued to do that. What would you say?
I'd say it sounds a lot like a lot of our conversations, actually. Now, listen, you can't trust somebody like that. And if you can't trust, you're not going to do a deal.
Right.
Now, there's always some gamesmanship and brinksmanship and a lot of other ships when it comes to political dickering. And that's okay. But when you shut down the government, you suck, because you wind up transferring your inadequacy, your inability onto the backs of men and women who don't deserve it.
Yeah, this is desperation time, and you can certainly see it. We see it playing out right now. Okay, my friend. See you tomorrow.
Always a pleasure.
Yep. See you. Thanks, Chris.
Bye-bye.
This is nice job. This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. So you could call this a tale of two crises, at least two. While the president traveled to the border today for what was basically a giant photo op, one he admitted earlier this week was, and these are his words, not going to change a damn thing, while he upped his threats to use an emergency declaration to solve his own manufactured crisis.
If this doesn't work out, probably I will do it. I would almost say definitely. This is a national emergency.
Back in Washington, a very real crisis for this president was unfolding, with one new development after another in the Russia investigation. Sources telling CNN Tonight a battle is brewing between Robert Mueller and the White House over obstruction of justice. The special counsel looking at false or misleading statements that President Trump and his team have made in public. Statements that could be seen as efforts to influence witnesses. We also learned today that the man you could call President Trump's nemesis, Michael Cohen, his former fixer and keeper of secrets, will answer questions from Congress next month in public. That will be must-see TV, which means we could all learn a lot more about what Cohen, now a convicted felon, has told Mueller. But the president, his attitude seems to be, what, me? Worry?
And I'm not worried about it at all, no.
And then there's Paul Manafort, the former Trump campaign chairman and another convicted felon. The president says he knows nothing about Manafort's sharing of polling data with a Russian intelligence-linked operative.
No, I didn't know anything about it. Nothing about it.
Wait, that wasn't Air Force One, right? We learned today that Mueller has talked to the Trump pollster who may have been the unwitting source to that polling data. There's a lot we still don't know. But what is clear from all of this is that Robert Mueller knows a lot he is not telling. Not yet, anyway. That, as the president, is all about the wall. His manufactured crisis. As I said, manufactured crisis meant to distract you from anything else, like Russia. And a pretty stunning about-face even for him. The president today actually tried to claim he never said Mexico would directly pay for the wall.
When during the campaign, I would say Mexico's going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this, and I never meant they're going to write out a check.
He never said it, and it was going to write out a check. When he does this thing, you know something is about to happen, this thing, like thinking. So he said he never said it. Oh, yeah? Here, roll this.
And who's going to pay for the wall? Who's going to pay for the wall? Who? going to pay for the wall? Who? In the end, Mexico's going to pay for the wall. They're going to pay for the wall, and they're going to enjoy it, okay? They're going to enjoy it. They may even write us a check by the time they see what happened.
If that's not clear enough, there is this statement from Trump's campaign website. And here it is, quote, "It's an easy decision for Mexico. Make a one-time payment of $5 to $10 billion to ensure that $24 billion continues to flow into their country year after year." A one-time payment. Not an indirect payment. Not money from a trade deal with Mexico. One that has not been ratified yet and has absolutely no provision to spend money on a wall. If you want to know the truth about where the money for the wall is coming from, it is quite simple. You. White House aide Mercedes Schlapp admitted that in an interview with CNN's Jim Sciutto.
The fact is, at the end of the day, taxpayers are going to pay for this wall. Why does he continue to mislead on that issue?
Well, let me tell you, because when you look at the trade deals are going to bring more jobs back to America. It's bringing more business back to America. And it's also going to keep our wages up. So this trade deal, in effect, does help pay for this border security. Let me tell you something. It's $5 billion. Yes, and you know what also taxpayers are paying for? The financial burden of this illegal immigration.
The president has created this manufactured crisis, forced a government shutdown that's deprived and is depriving 800,000 workers of their pay over what the New York Times reports was nothing but a mnemonic device, a way to keep him on message during the campaign. Now he's holding the government hostage. And that word crisis, it's an important one. Sources tell CNN that White House lawyers have advised Team Trump to use the word as often as they can so they can point to it later in court to defend a national emergency declaration. And Team Trump seems to be listening.
This is a crisis.
A crisis on our southern border.
This is a humanitarian crisis.
Humanitarian crisis at the border.
We have a national crisis.
Undeniable crisis at our southern border.
A crisis of the heart.
We have a national crisis.
A crisis of the soul.
It is a crisis.
This is a tremendous crisis at the border.
Saying crisis a whole bunch doesn't make it one. Let's see. Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. Does make this a cheeseburger? But we're learning tonight that some White House aides, reportedly including Jared Kushner and Kellyanne Conway, are cautioning the president against declaring a national emergency unless it creates a clear path to build a wall. That is according to the Wall Street Journal, which reports others are looking for alternative ways to fund the wall without approval from Congress, including trying to divert funds from disaster relief. So here's the bottom line. 800,000 federal workers are going to miss a paycheck tomorrow, one that they need. And in pretty stunning bit of irony here, the shutdown, which is all about the president's demand for a border wall, is putting ICE at risk of running out of money to pay for centers to detain undocumented immigrants. That is as some Border Patrol agents who are also working without pay have sued the Trump administration. And we are learning tonight that Miami International Airport will close a terminal intermittently this weekend. The spokesman says TSA screeners are calling in sick at double the normal rate. And I want you to take a look at this, okay? It is a pay stub for $0 issued to William Streifler, an air traffic controller at Newark Liberty International Airport who has been working without pay. Look at your screen right now. Put that back up. Imagine if you've been working all week or for however many weeks, And this is the paycheck you got in the mail. This is the thanks for doing your job, for showing up every day at work. How would you feel if that was your paycheck? Well, we know what the president thinks.
I can relate, and I'm sure that the people that are on the receiving end will make adjustment. They always do. And they'll make adjustment. People understand exactly what's going on. But many of those people that won't be receiving a paycheck, many of those people agree 100% with what I'm doing.
They make adjustments. He can relate. People who are literally running out of money to buy food for their families, who may not be able to pay their rent, who may even lose food stamps if the shutdown continues past next month. Those people need more than adjustments. They need money, right? But they need their government and their president to stand up for them. Asked today whether the buck stops with him for this shutdown, the one you remember the president himself claimed he was proud of, he said this.
The buck stops with everybody.
The buck stops with everybody. Insulting. That's not what it said on President Harry Truman's desk. The 33rd president knew the buck stops here. But this president, he doesn't seem proud of his shutdown now. What happened to this?
I alone can fix it.
Well, this shutdown, this manufactured crisis, is something the president can fix. The question is, will he? The president trying to keep the focus on his manufactured crisis at the border while a real crisis is brewing from the Russia investigation. There's lots to discuss now. Carrie Cordero is here, Michael D'Antonio, and Frank Bruni. We're going to dig into it right after this.
T-Mobile knows dancing is better when you include a partner. Singing is better when you include a friend. And unlimited is better with a phone included. It's true. $40 with the other guys doesn't include a phone. So start the new year right. Join T-Mobile and get unlimited with a phone included for just $40 per line.
Our yard could really use some work. Do you know any good landscapers?
You know, I think I do.
I need quotes from your top 4 guys and check their credentials and customer reviews.
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything HomeAdvisor can. So just ask HomeAdvisor.
Where are you?
Well, the squirrels are back in the attic.
Mom?
Your dad won't call an exterminator.
Can I call you back, Mom?
He says it's personal this time.
If you're a mom, you call it the worst time. That's what you do. If you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, you switch to Geico. It's what you do.
Where are you? It's very loud there. Are you taking a Zumba class?
What makes this simple salad the best simple salad ever? Great tasting, heart healthy California walnuts. So simple, so good. Get the recipes at walnuts.org.
Don't get mad. Get E-Trade, dog.
Minimums and fees, they seem to be the very foundation of your typical bank. Capital One is anything but typical. That's why we designed Capital One Cafes. You can get savings and checking accounts with no fees or minimums, and one of America's best savings rates. To top it off, you can open one from anywhere in 5 minutes. This isn't a typical bank. This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
As a physician, the bulk of what I do is deliver babies. The experience is minimized by the fact that I'm hiding my teeth. Instead of covering with my hand, I will put the mask on. My smile was no longer there.
When Richard came in for his consultation, he didn't want to smile. He was embarrassed.
At Clear Choice, we want patients to absolutely walk out of here saying, this was the best decision I've ever made.
He reassured me, very professionally, this can be done. Clear Choice is the future. Between the technology of being able to 3D map out my bone structures and then to custom make the implants and put it in knowing that it can stay there for the duration of my life. Why would I want to have dentures? When it was all done, I had my miracle.
And that's what he wanted to give back. He wanted to be able to smile.
I'm glad I get to smile again. It changed my life.
We're now just hours away from the 21st day of the shutdown, and there is no end in sight. And so tomorrow, 800,000 federal workers will not get a paycheck. While the president tries to keep the focus on his manufactured crisis, he faces mounting new developments in the Russia investigation. I want to bring in Carrie Cordero, Frank Bruni, and Michael D'Antonio, who's the author of The Truth About Trump. So the president was down at the border. Good evening, everyone, by the way. Down at the border claiming a crisis, right? And I know the administration, conservative media, they hate it when we say manufactured crisis, right? It's all the thing, right? It is a manufactured crisis. He's been talking about the onslaught of that. The real crisis, though, is the Russia investigation that continues reaching, you know, digging into this administration and its ties or whatever it is to Russia all along.
Yeah.
It's for you, Frank.
Well, I mean, yes, that's one real crisis. I would say the even bigger crisis, and we had it just right, not to toot my own paper's horn, in an editorial the other day, which had a headline on it that said the crisis is in the White House. And the crisis is in the White House for the reason that you just signaled by using the word manufacture. We have a president who is playing beyond fast and loose with the facts and the truth to make a case for something that has no sound policy justification and that is entirely about some ridiculous promise he made, as you said, as a memory device in his speeches. He's now wedded to it. It's a part of his manhood. It's a part of his pride. He has to show this segment of his base that he won't relent. And all of us are hostage to it, not just the furloughed federal workers, but everyone watching the show and everyone on the stage. This nation is ground to a standstill. What are the opportunity costs of this drama?
Let me ask you, Frank, and you've said this before. So if it's a crisis now, why wasn't it a crisis a day before the election in November, or the 2 years before, when Republicans had complete control of the government?
That is the question, because the situation on the border, to the extent that it's at all different from a year ago or 18 months ago, it's different simply because of things that Trump has made happen in recent weeks by kind of bringing everything to a standstill. Republicans had control of both chambers of Congress for 2 years. He made this promise before he ever got into office on the campaign trail. What happened over those 2 years? He didn't get this done. I'm kind of glad he didn't get it done because I think it's silly policy, but now he feels the clock ticking, and he's kind of come to a head now because certain members of his base, certain people in particular, Ann Coulter, et cetera, have decided right now to hold his feet to the fire.
And feeling pressure from the Mueller investigation, which, I mean, as we learned today, is far-reaching, Carrie. CNN is learning that investigators have focused on conflicting public statements by Trump and his team that could be seen as an effort to influence witnesses and obstruct justice. What does it say to you that Mueller appears to view false or misleading statements to the public as obstruction of justice?
Well, first off, I'm a little curious where the information that's the line that Mueller is investigating is coming from, because so much of our information, it comes from defense attorneys or it comes from White House legal counsel. So I'm always a little bit skeptical as to where that's coming from in terms of when it's characterizing what the Mueller investigation is doing. But assuming that they're looking obviously at obstruction and that they're looking at public statements, I think those are fair game. You know, a lot of people think, oh, if someone is witness tampering, if they're trying to obstruct justice, that's something that has to take place in secret. I don't think that there's necessarily has to be that case. The president did a lot of things in public. He tried to, through his different tweets, through his statements, he pressured the attorney general, he pressured the FBI director and fired him. He pressured the deputy director, the deputy attorney general. I mean, he laid on so much pressure to each of these individuals who were in charge of the investigations that I would think it's a legitimate line of inquiry for the special counsel's office to be looking at that from the obstruction perspective.
One more question for you before I move on to Michael. President Trump's attorney responded to CNN, the CNN report, with this, okay? This says, read CNN's article that Mueller's gang of angry Democrats wants to use the president's public comments as part of an obstruction claim. According to this latest oppressive legal theory, you can't even defend yourself. But who says Mueller's team doesn't leak? Extremely unethical. Carrie, does this give us a clue as to Trump's legal defense here?
Well, Rudy Giuliani's tweets, I think, tend to be PR as opposed to legal defense. I think there are other lawyers who are really more involved in his legal defense. He seems to be the front person to make the public arguments. Him characterizing the Mueller investigation and trying to disparage it, I just view it as that he's trying to discredit it in the public eye. And so I don't give that any credibility. There has been no information publicly reported throughout the course of the special counsel's investigation indicating that they leak in any way. And all of the analysis that I've done throughout this case, I think that most information comes from either the president's legal team or, in some cases, the lawyers for different witnesses who have been called before the special counsel's investigators.
Okay, Michael, let me bring you in now because, and can we talk about Michael Cohen, because I find this very interesting. How do you think the president's going to respond to him? But I mean, basically, Michael Cohen, who's going to malign the president publicly when he testifies.
Well, Michael Cohen knows everything, and this is why the president was calling him a very weak person a few months ago. He's now the most powerful person the president confronts, at least in the immediate future. Of course, Robert Mueller and the Democrats in Congress are going to torment this president, but he will first be tormented by Michael Cohen. And how do you feel Michael Cohen views these proceedings? I'm sure he thinks, A, I'm not going to be the villain in this moment in history. He's said that formally. And B, I've been called weak by this man that I did so much for 12 years. He's going to sit there and he's going to lay out a whole series of transgressions that Donald Trump, the businessman, and Donald Trump, the candidate, committed in the run-up to his election. And I think it's going to be devastating for the president.
Yeah, but they're going to say, the White House will say, he's testified in front of Congress before, that he is not trustworthy, he cannot be trusted. But why would he lie at this point?
He has no incentive to lie, and this is a man who, in the president, who lies now 7,000 times before he's completed 2 years in office. The main thing about Donald Trump is that he never takes responsibility for anything. Mexico is going to pay for it, so maybe now Mexico will pay for the federal workers. You know, everybody else is to blame for everything, and maybe those federal workers should have been born to Fred Trump, because Fred Trump bailed out Donald Trump to the tune of $400 million in today's money. And every mistake that he ever got into, every jam he ever created, his father bailed him out. He's an illegitimate president. He was an illegitimate claim to a billionaire when he was a businessman, and I think he's finally going to be held responsible.
All right, everybody stick around because we have more to talk about. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Jared Kushner and other White House aides are cautioning the president about declaring a national emergency at the border. But will he do it anyway?
America's #1 meal kit company can get you prepping like a pro, cooking a mean burger, dinner done in 30. HelloFresh delivers award-winning taste week after week. Use code TV80 to get $80 off. HelloFresh, get cooking.
Found myself in you, I know this love is true, and I never let you go.
Elite Singles, the leading dating site for highly educated singles. Register today to love again at EliteSingles.com.
People with type 2 diabetes are excited about the potential of once-weekly Ozempic. In a study with Ozempic, a majority of adults lowered their blood sugar and reached an A1C of less than 7 and maintained it.
Oh, under 7?
And you may lose weight. In the same one-year study, adults lost on average up to 12 pounds.
Oh, up to 12 pounds?
A 2-year study showed that Ozempic does not increase the risk of major cardiovascular events like heart attack, stroke, or death.
Oh, no increased risk.
Ozempic should not be the first medicine for treating diabetes or for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not share needles or pens. Don't reuse needles. Do not take Ozempic if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Ozempic. Stop taking Ozempic and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis. Tell your doctor if you have diabetic retinopathy or vision changes. Taking Ozempic with a sulfonylurea or insulin may increase the risk for low blood sugar. Common side effects are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, and constipation. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
I discovered the potential with Ozempic.
Ask your healthcare provider if Ozempic is right for you.
When I tell people my story, they don't believe it, but it's true.
Wow.
How could you not tell us?
The 70s, shaped by the music. Boogie Down as Reels gives you the lowdown on the music legends who played the soundtrack to the max.
We could do anything we wanted, so we did.
It starts with the premiere of Donna Summer, Disco Queen. Love to Love the 70s week. All next week on Reels Channel 238. Brought to you by Bowflex.
Let's see. If these packs have the same number of bladder leak pads, I bet you think bigger is better. Actually, it's bulkier. Always Discreet doesn't need all that bulk to protect because it's made differently. The super absorbent core quickly turns liquid to gel for drier protection that's a lot less bulky. Looks like good things really do come in small packages. Always Discreet for bladder leaks.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
And we're back. Well, tonight, lawmakers inside the White House working to prepare a legal defense in the event President Trump decides to declare a national emergency on the southern border. That's sure to spark a major legal battle. Back with me now, Carrie Cordero, Frank Bruni, and Michael D'Antonio. Senator Lindsey Graham is now calling for the president to invoke the national security powers to fund the border wall because the president rejected the Republicans' compromise plan. What is wrong with Lindsey Graham?
That is the $64,000 question. And it's a good one in this context because people who have any kind of memory of this stuff will remember that, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, he was part of the Gang of Eight, right, who crafted a truly kind of comprehensive immigration reform measure that did not ultimately succeed. It died in the House. But that measure included a pathway to citizenship. You know, that measure took into account the Dreamers. None of what Trump is proposing right now does that, and Lindsey Graham is saying declare a national emergency anyway. He's saying exactly what Trump wants him to say, and this is the way he behaves. For every one time that he contradicts the president, he comes back and he tells the president exactly what he wants to hear because he cares most of all about being in the president's good graces and having the president's ear.
You know, Carrie, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that some White House aides, including Jared Kushner, are lobbying for restraint when it comes to declaring a national emergency. Here's the reporting right here. It says, instead, Mr. Kushner argued, an emergency should be invoked only if it creates a clear path to build a wall, the key issue in the standoff between Mr. Trump and congressional Democrats that has led to a 20-day partial government shutdown. Let's stop doing things just to do them, Mr. Kushner said, according to officials familiar with the meeting. So, Carrie, no doubt, if the president declared an emergency, it would get caught up in the courts. What would that look like?
Well, what would happen is if he declares a national emergency, he has to designate in that designation or in an accompanying executive order what other laws would be invoked. So, for example, there's been reporting throughout the day that maybe other funds that the military can use for other purposes could be repurposed, and so there's some military-related, Department of Defense-related statutes that could be invoked. And so then what would happen is a legal challenge would have to be launched against those, and then that would be subject to litigation. So the activity perhaps wouldn't get started if a judge said, well, wait until I hear these legal challenges, and it could be drawn out in litigation. But here's a perspective from a national security law perspective, which is one that I would think that Senator Graham and others who are so strong on national security would be concerned about, which is that if we establish a precedent where the president uses a pretext to create a national security crisis, where he uses information that is not legitimately threat information or is not a legitimate national security problem. What that does is that weakens future presidents' ability to make legitimate national security arguments that are credible, both to the Congress and to the people. I mean, I was involved throughout the 2000s when I was in government of making arguments and preparing senior leaders for arguments defending strong legal authorities to help with counterterrorism efforts. And what this administration is doing and what the president's doing is weakening that ability. And in the long term, it will weaken the ability of the country to protect itself and to get needed legal authorities when it needs them.
Michael, I want to know what you think about this reporting about Jared Kushner, the only person essentially saying, hey, let's think about this before we do it. But we always get the reporting that, well, Jared Kushner and Ivanka tried to stop him, but they just wouldn't listen.
Sure,
Is he
good
playing
angels.
both sides against the middle? Yeah.
Well, and notice that he didn't say, hey, let's tell the truth. Hey, let's wait until there's actually an emergency. You know, this is, nobody in this constellation of characters seems to have a conscience. Nobody has any commitment to the truth. They're committed to the president's agenda, but the agenda is for tomorrow and then the next day. It's not about what is good for the United States of America. If that were the case, he wouldn't be taking these powers and contemplating giving every president in future the same authority to declare an emergency at a whim.
And Don, why would the
Hold on, Carrie. Hold on. I promise I'm good. That is very profound. Why isn't he saying, let's just tell the truth to the American public?
Because that's not the standard. It's never been the standard with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The standard for him is, what can I manufacture? You call this a manufactured crisis. Donald Trump manufactured himself.
Yeah.
He is not the person that he's promoted himself to be.
Carrie, I'll give you the last word. Sorry. Go on.
My question is, why would Donald Trump be taking national security advice from Jared Kushner? I mean, if the president is going to take national security advice, it should be from the director of national intelligence. It should be from the FBI director. It should be from the Secretary of Homeland Security if she can actually articulate why a $5 billion wall will solve the problem of children dying in immigration custody and the other humanitarian problems that legitimately exist on the border.
Yep. Very good. And more than $5 billion. That's what they're asking for now, but it's going to cost more than that. Another very good question. Why is he taking that advice from someone who's not the national security advisor? Thank you very much, all of you. I appreciate it. The president's former fixer is going to testify publicly in front of the House Oversight Committee. And one of the congressmen on that committee who will be asking Cohen questions, there he is right there. He's going to join me next. Congressman Raja Krishnamurti is with us.
Every day, visionaries are creating the future. So every day, we put our latest technology and vast expertise to work. The United States Postal Service makes more e-commerce deliveries to homes than anyone else in the country, affordably and on time. The future only happens with people who really know how to deliver it.
One day, it appears.
Is that a dark spot?
Gold Bond Dark Spot Minimizing Cream for Body. Targeted to help fade the look of dark spots beginning in 4 weeks. Gold Bond for dark spots in the body lotion aisle.
We didn't dream up a new way to find the best ramen. We never thought, you know what Mars needs? A dune buggy. We didn't decide you should be able to share your home with travelers from around the world. We're not the ones who imagined one day we'd all be streaming movies, or whatever she's about to do. But when asked if these ideas were possible, we're the only cloud with the capabilities, experience, and know-how to make them happen. AWS is how.
This is your wake-up call. If you have moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis, month after month, the clock is ticking on irreversible joint damage. Ongoing pain and stiffness are signs of joint erosion. Humira can help stop the clock. Prescribed for 15 years, Humira targets and blocks a source of inflammation that contributes to joint pain and irreversible damage.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Help stop the clock on further irreversible joint damage. Talk to your rheumatologist. Right here, right now. Humira.
This is not a bed. It's a revolution in sleep. The Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed from $9.99 senses your movement and automatically adjusts on each side to keep you both comfortable. And snoring? How smart is that? Smarter sleep to help you lose your dad bod. Train for that marathon? And wake up with the patience of a saint. Sleep Number is ranked #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses by J.D. Power. And now, save up to $500 on select Sleep Number 360 smart beds, only for a limited time.
Saturday, Vance sizes up the Democrats' 2020 field with potential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. And Republicans ousted in the midterms weigh in on President Trump and the future of their party.
Mia Love gave me no love, and she lost.
The Van Jones Show, Saturday night at 7 Eastern.
Do you have $10,000 or more in debt? Struggling to keep up with credit card payments? There is a way out. Freedom Debt Relief. Their affordable program could help you save money and be debt-free in 24 to 48 months.
Since I started with Freedom Debt Relief, I'm saving money each month and I'm getting my debt paid down.
You could eliminate your debt with just one low monthly program payment that fits your budget.
Find out how quickly you could be debt-free. Call now, 1-800-319-9951.
Freedom Debt Relief has resolved over $10 billion in debt for hundreds of thousands of Americans. So before your debt gets any worse, give them a call.
Freedom saved me a lot of money. I am so grateful.
Their certified debt consultants are standing by, ready to help.
Call 1-800-319-9951 to start eliminating your debt now. That's 1-800-319-9951.
What has become of me could happen only in America.
So the president claims he's not worried that his former lawyer will testify publicly before Congress next month. Michael Cohen's heading to prison for multiple crimes, including campaign finance violations for buying the silence of 2 women who claim past affairs with Donald Trump. Cohen told prosecutors he acted at Trump's direction. And next month, he is set to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Joining me now is a committee member, Congressman Raja Krishnamurti of Illinois, an Illinois Democrat. Thank you so much. It's good to have you on. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Don.
You guys are awfully busy. So let's talk about this. Michael Cohen is going to testify before the committee that you sit on. He's already implicated the president in a crime. What do you want to ask him?
Gosh, first of all, thanks again for having me on. He's coming on February 7th before our committee to testify voluntarily. There are so many subjects that he's going to be asked about. I'll be interested in hearing him talk about the campaign finance law violations, but more importantly, you know, the dealings between the Trump organization and the Russians in the lead up to the 2016 elections. You know, he knows everything. He's at the nexus of the president's personal affairs, but also the Trump organization and the campaign.
Mm-hmm. You know the response will be, you can't trust him, he's a liar. What do you say to that? That's going to be a response, I should say, from the administration.
Well, certainly, you know, people will be trying to evaluate his credibility on February 7th. But on the other hand, who would know better than Michael Cohen what happens when you lie to Congress? Remember, he was convicted of a felony by Mr. Mueller for lying to Congress in the past.
So our Manu Raju, Congressman, caught up with Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings, and he asked him about how the House Intel Chair, Adam Schiff, says the Russia investigation won't be part of your hearing. Take a look at this.
We are going to make sure that we do absolutely nothing to interfere with the Mueller investigation. That is very, very important to us. But I can tell you that as far if Adam, he's right, so that's fine.
Okay, so Congressman, to be clear, are questions about Russia, things like the Trump-Moscow project, is that all off the table in the public hearing?
Not necessarily. Obviously, certain subject matter that might be classified would not be proper subject matter for an open hearing such as this. And certainly Chairman Cummings is taking pains to coordinate with Mr. Mueller to make sure we don't interfere in that investigation. But on the other hand, you know, at the end of the day, the Oversight Committee has to learn about certain matters related to the Russia investigation, if for no other reason than to, you know, put in place procedures and systems for the future to prevent anything like that from happening again.
So Mueller cleared Michael Cohen to testify. What does that tell you about where Mueller is in the investigation? Does it tell, if anything at all?
It would just be speculation on my part. I've read some commentary that perhaps Mr. Mueller is now at the stage where he doesn't necessarily need to work with Mr. Cohen further, but on the other hand, we know that Mr. Cohen is still potentially cooperating with Mr. Mueller and the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. Congressman, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
The president is hiring more lawyers as we learn that Robert Mueller is looking into potential obstruction of justice from the president and his team. The former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, tells us what he thinks about all of this. That's next.
I'm a bunch of wind. And just like your stomach after that strip mall sushi, well, I'm a bit unpredictable. Let's redecorate. What's the matter, Tanya? I thought you loved being spontaneous. I do. And if you got the wrong home insurance coverage, I might break the bank, too. So get Allstate and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
What makes this simple salad the best simple salad ever? Great tasting, heart-healthy California walnuts. So simple, so good. Get the recipes at walnuts.org.
Hi, sweetheart. I know I should have called, but I was in the neighborhood. I love this cookware. Oh, did I get this for you?
It's actually from Wayfair, okay?
Look at this ottoman. Where'd you get this?
Still Wayfair.
Oh, this table. And it folds out.
Looks pretty good, Mom, don't you think?
Sweetheart, has your mother-in-law been here?
Mom.
She didn't replace you. She's got Wayfair.
Oh, yes, that's nice. In my house.
AT&T provides edge-to-edge intelligence, covering virtually every part of your finance business. And so if someone tries to breach your firewall in London and you start to panic, don't. Because your CTO says we've got allies on the outside and security algorithms on the inside. And that way you can focus on expanding into Eastern Europe. And that makes the branch managers happy, and yes, that's the branch managers happy. AT&T provides edge-to-edge intelligence. It can do so much for your business, the list goes on and on. That's the power of and. And when this happens, you'll know how to quickly react.
We really love the holidays at Graham Grahams, but it's tough to...
Relax.
The Dish guy heard us. Said with the Dish Anywhere app, we could bring the comfort of our home TV along with us. Live TV, on demand, even our DVR shows.
Feel good shows.
That put us right at ease. Mostly.
So many eyes.
Take live TV, on demand, and your home DVR anywhere. Dish, tuned into you.
Whatever weather comes your way, WeatherTech has you covered. With our laser-measured cargo liners, no-drill mud flaps, and floor liners. Order yours today at WeatherTech.com. You never know when it's going to be a WeatherTech day.
Perfect weather today.
It's time for Vistaprint's semi-annual sale. Save up to 50% off everything, including business cards in a range of shapes and sizes, postcards in multiple sizes and paper stocks, labels and stickers to add that finishing touch, plus much more. It's all up to 50% off. Go to Vistaprint.com before January 11th and enter promo code SAVEBIG. It's the semi-annual sale, happening now at Vistaprint.
I was surprised being able to pick up a language so quickly.
Babbel, the quick way to get conversational in a new language. Babbel's award-winning interactive technology gets you speaking right away.
You jump right in and learn relevant words and phrases right from the first lesson.
I couldn't believe how fast it was going. It was wonderful.
In a very short period of time, within 3 weeks, you're speaking Spanish.
So, which language do you want to speak today? Now, you can try Babbel free, the #1 selling language learning app in the world.
I work in France, and now that I'm speaking French, my colleagues there are impressed.
I don't know who designed it, but it's genius.
Now, if we go to a French restaurant, I can converse with the waiter in French, and I'm like, woohoo!
Try Babbel free today. Go to Babbel.com or download the app and see why Babbel is the quick way to get conversational in a new language. Babbel. Which language do you want to speak today?
So sources tell CNN that Robert Mueller's investigators are focusing on conflicting public statements by President Trump and his team that could be seen as an effort to obstruct justice. That as the White House is working behind the scenes to try to keep Mueller's eventual report out of the public eye. Let's discuss. The former director of national intelligence is Mr. James Clapper, and he is here. Good evening, sir. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Don.
CNN is reporting that Mueller is focusing on public statements made by Trump and his team that could lead to obstruction of justice. How significant is this development?
Well, I personally think it's very, very significant because, as I understand it, not an attorney, as you know, but a major ingredient or dimension of obstruction is intent. Mm-hmm. And just because I think the public statements that the president has made, and he can't control himself, and I think a lot of that's going to catch up with him. Mm-hmm. I've always felt that his firing of Jim Comey, going back that far, seems like ancient history now, mm-hmm. Was obstruction, just given what he said publicly during the NBC interview with Lester Holt. So if Mueller is looking at that, that's not good for the White House legal team.
Yeah, we're also learning that Team Trump, speaking of the legal team, Team Trump is hiring at least 17 new lawyers to try to keep Mueller's report from ever going public, or at least redacting it so heavily that it becomes meaningless. What's the likelihood they can bury Mueller's report?
I think there'll be so much pressure to make it public. I don't know what the legal grounds might be. I think, for me at least, executive privilege would be pretty thin gruel, particularly for so much of this is history that took place, before he became president. So. I don't know. I don't know what the legal arguments would be, but I just think the public pressure to make it public will be pretty tough to resist.
Some exclusive CNN reporting that I want you to comment on that Team Mueller interviewed Trump campaign pollster Tony Fabrizio, a former business associate of Paul Manafort's, who we learned this week, by the way, Paul Manafort gave polling data to a man suspected of being a Russian operative. What does this interview tell you about the direction of this investigation?
Well, I think this is a very significant development. First, the revelation about Manafort sharing polling data, and all we saw was really a glimpse of what I'm sure is a much larger aspect of this case. And it's interesting to me because one of the things I dwelled on in my book was the striking parallels and similarities between what the Trump campaign was doing and saying and what the Russians were doing and saying. I don't allege, the book was a year ago, or almost a year ago, but I don't allege collusion. So that snippet that we learned about inadvertently, I think, is quite significant. And the fact now that we understand that the Mueller team is interviewing, somebody who had responsibility for polling.
Yeah.
So, and this too is very significant because, again, what's significant about the sharing is how much detail that about the polling results that were done by the campaign were shared with this, by the way, Russian intelligence operative. And how much did that then guide or was used by the Russians as at least part of the input that they had for managing their information, their influence campaign during the presidential campaign.
Hey, just quickly, just to be clear here, just sharing that internal polling data with an alleged Russian operative, does that mean collusion? I heard you say something I wasn't clear about.
Well, it does to me.
It does, okay.
I mean, at least that's a glimpse. Now, I don't know that in and of itself would meet the evidentiary threshold for collusion, whatever that might be. Yeah. But just as a layman, it certainly, it does a number on all these denials of no collusion, no collusion, no collusion. Well, there was. And if you add that to some of the other things that have been observed inferentially, this to me is pretty significant.
Yeah. Director, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Don.
President visiting the border and saying he'll probably declare a national emergency to get his border wall. Fareed Zakaria says we should all be worried, and he's going to explain why next.
T-Mobile knows dancing is better when you include a partner. Singing is better when you include a friend. And unlimited is better with a phone included. It's true. $40 with the other guys doesn't include a phone. So start the new year right. Join T-Mobile and get unlimited with a phone included for just $40 per line.
Daddy diaper duty. I can't say it's the highlight of fatherhood, but I'd rather be here with my little man than not be here because of migraine. I had 3 words for migraine. I am here.
Aimovig, a preventive treatment for migraine in adults, reduces the number of monthly migraine days. For some, that number can be cut in half or more. The most common side effects are pain, redness or swelling at the injection site, and constipation. Talk to your doctor about Aimovig and be there more.
Slinging gives you the flexibility to watch the live TV you love. Speaking of flexibility, try new positions like the reverse armadillo. Foot stuff. The flirtatious kitten. That's my favorite. Only $25 a month. Watch Sing 7 days free.
Meet your genes.
Listen up. I'm a gene that impacts your muscle composition.
BTBD9 here. I could influence how much you move your arms and legs in your sleep. I'm a twitchy little gene.
We're 2 of the genes that may impact your risk for celiac disease. We have a gluten situation. I'm linked to a Neanderthal trait.
Lactose intolerance.
Caffeine consumption.
This year, before you make a generic resolution, meet your genes and make a genetic one with over 90 genetic reports at 23andme.com.
Need a change of scenery? Kayak searches hundreds of travel sites and filters by cabin class, Wi-Fi, and more, so you can be confident you're getting the right flight at the best price. Kayak. Search one and done.
With Fidelity Wealth Management, you get straightforward advice, tailored recommendations, tax-efficient investing strategies, and a dedicated advisor to help you grow and protect your wealth. Fidelity Wealth Management.
If your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's symptoms are holding you back, and your current treatment hasn't worked well enough, it may be time for a change. Ask your doctor about Entyvio, the only biologic developed and approved just for UC and Crohn's. Entyvio works at the site of inflammation in the GI tract and is clinically proven to help many patients achieve both symptom relief and remission. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of infection, which can be serious. PML, a rare, serious, potentially fatal brain infection caused by a virus, may be possible. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, experience frequent infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Liver problems can occur with Entyvio. If your UC or Crohn's treatment isn't working for you, ask your gastroenterologist about Entyvio. Entyvio, relief and remission within reach.
Closed captioning